So what we do at PAST is we provide these opportunities so students can get that feeling, so they can get that bit of excitement, that bit of buzz, and they can take that buzz and apply it to other things. So this wasn't just an exercise into introduction to archaeology. These weren't just empty units or units that had been excavated before just to put students into, just to get their hands dirty. This was real archaeology.
Well, I think for me, my personal opinion about this entire archaeological experience has really changed. I always thought that it was more of just striking gold. You had to find the big treasure. I didn't know that, like, under each section of grass is potentially a small treasure.
It's the arm of a figurine. It's got a little hinge and a little hand. Looks like it's trying to be a person.
What I wanted to do was I wanted to introduce the students to the subject area and to archaeology, because really archaeology is about interpretation. And what better way to interpret a site is to bring them to Jamestown and Colonial Williamsburg, where you really do have living history.
We got a chance to learn about the different spots and how they play an important role into becoming helping the democracy that we have adopted today in American culture.
And another thing I learned was that when children were like up to 3 years old, they were learning how to use a bow and arrow. So that was like one thing that was fascinating, that a kid that young can use a bow and arrow.
So the whole point behind bringing them to this site was for when they're digging, that they can visualize and conceptualize the site that they're on and can help interpret the artifacts that they were hopefully going to excavate.
The most special thing I've seen so far was actually in our group. As one of our team members was digging, they found a special piece of pottery. It didn't look really familiar, but after we asked our senior archaeologist, Mr. Lucati, what it was, and after doing some research, his team found out that it's a white salt glaze type porcelain thing, and it's never been found in the state of Virginia until now.
My favorite part so far has been going on site to do archaeological field work at Carter Braxton's old homeland. He is a signer of the Declaration of Independence, so just going to his land and looking at the artifacts from such an important time, the American Revolution, definitely has a big role to play in studying like how our country began and what life was like back then.
Tuesday afternoon, we went to the Mariners Museum in Newport News. The exhibits that they have are cutting-edge exhibits. We got a backstage tour of the conservation labs. What the students were able to do was see the big picture involved in an archaeological excavation. That it's not just the excavating itself, it's the whole process of conserving. It's the length of time, it's the cost involved in conserving an artifact.
Today at the museum, I learned stuff that I didn't know that was in my history book. And like just to see it right there, even though it's really not happening this time, just to see it right there kind of makes me want to get to know it even more.
We're quite determined in the fact that this is not a summer camp. This isn't something just to occupy a student for a week. Primarily, it's educational. Hopefully for me, what's more important than actual academic stuff is actual life lessons. It's about being able to be responsible for your own awareness. It's about being responsible for being mature. These different abilities of time management, of leadership, of communication, all these different components that are essential for someone to make it through school, through college, and then beyond that.
This is my first camping experience. I'm from Cleveland. We get in a car, we go everywhere, but this is the first time that I actually been camping inside of a tent.
Dealing with the bugs and all of that, like, I didn't know it was such big bugs in nature compared to in the inner city.
But it really made me start to like nature. Because I view nature different. Since I'm in nature for a whole week, it's gonna make me view it different.
This field school had no electricity. A bonus for this is that it took out that extra noise, that extra distraction. The students were able to come back, sit down under the canopies and just work.
Right? Well, the problem is that the trees in Virginia...
So what you'll find in our presentations, when they give their presentations, there was no light. They only just had their little lanterns. It kind of created that mood, that atmosphere that captured what we had done this week. Just that quietness, away from the hustle and bustle out there in Columbus and Cleveland, and just brought them together as a group.
Sorry about my voice, by the way.
I think the coolest thing is we finally get to trace it back to where it really starts, where you're finding things fresh from the ground, and this is where history begins.
I was happy that I had found something that nobody else had found, and I felt special.
It really is kind of eye-opening, because you go to all these places and you're kind of like, well, how do they know that? And through this experience, you can kind of really show that they're not really too far off. You can really find a lot from just digging around in the dirt.